Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to the book launch for The Talk, Vital Expressions and Conversations by Families of Color. Like we were talking about before we even started recording this, before we had our pre-recording, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't need to write about the talk? Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to rely on the talk to help our children and all the way into adulthood survive this crazy making world that we live in? Wouldn't it be nice if we could come up with a book down the road that says no longer needed, put a big stamp on it? But until that time comes, I think it's important that we just keep talking. Now, I'm going to apologize right now. I'm fighting a cold, so I'm not going to do a lot of talking myself. I don't think my voice is what we need to hear tonight anyway. What I would like to do is go around and everybody one by one kind of share who they are and maybe something about where you're from and why you came into doing the talk. I'll start with Daryl.
Well, I came into it, I was encouraged by my sister, Zaneta Jones, to share some thoughts based on personal experience that I had over the course of the years. The talk is real for me because I live it, it appears, every day. And I've had specific experiences throughout my career, throughout my life, that touches on the heart of what we're attempting to talk about and to shine a light upon. So I thought I would share, based on my own experiences, at least one incident that I had run across quite some time ago, and how I used that experience to communicate with my grandsons, who today are 19 and 15 years of age.
Thank you, Daryl. Yasmin? Yasmin? Did we freeze up? I think Yasmin froze up. Zan?
Hi, I am Zaneta Jones, and as my brother Daryl mentioned, I pulled him into this project because I thought it was very important to have a male perspective in addition to all of the mothers and aunts and friends who were going to talk about the talk. I joined the project because I thought it was very important. I remember Susan announcing the project and I couldn't wait. I knew immediately what I would write about. I have a son who, at the time, we were talking about the talk that mothers have with their Black sons. And so, but it grew, as you know. But at the time, I knew that I would share a story. I wrote 2 expressions for the book, but the first one was my talk with Jaron, a talk that I had in 1997 when he was 17 years old. We lived in Boulder, Colorado, which is 1%. The population of Black families is 1%. And so we stood out as Black people. We stand out anyway, but we really stood out in Boulder. And I always encouraged my son to not draw negative attention to himself. He was already being judged because of the color of his skin, and so I didn't want to bring anything negative. I didn't want him to draw negative attention to himself. And so the expression, the poem that I wrote was about a conversation that we had when we moved into a new house out of Boulder, 15 minutes from Boulder, and didn't know the neighborhood. We had just moved in, and my son wanted to go for a run one evening. And I thought, not yet. we don't know this place yet. Just hold tight. And that's what my expression is about. That's what one of them is about. I'll give someone else a chance.
Thank you, Zan.
Mhm.
Angelica.
Hello. I found out about the project after I shared my poem with Lisa. I was just, I don't know why I wanted to share it, but on Martin Luther King Day, I was inspired. And I have two sons, a 5-year-old and 11-year-old. And I just had words that needed to be put on paper. And I ended up writing in the poem, My Beautiful Black Boy. A lot of times we limit ourselves as Black people because we are afraid. And I try my best to teach my children to be fearless because there are so many opportunities out there. And sometimes it's going to be challenging. They are challenging, but that doesn't mean that you limit yourself. And so when I wrote the poem and then I shared it with my kids, they repeated certain lines for me, which made me cry. But it also allowed me to see that this poem can be impactful. And then I shared it with Lisa, and she was like, I want to include it in her project. And I was like, oh, okay, yay. So that's basically the original story.
Thanks, Angelica. I do appreciate you sharing that poem with me. I just was so excited when I heard it. It's like, this has got to be in the book. So I'm glad that you accepted that invitation.
Thank you.
And you have some kind of a garbling sound on your audio, so I don't know if you might need to do something on the audio check.
Okay, I can try leaving and coming back, see if that helps.
That might work.
Okay, I'll be back.
Thank you. Mhm. Loris.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, all right. My name is Loris Wallace, and I became aware of the talk from Lisa and my sister Cheryl. And like I think most Black people, they, especially Black mothers of Black sons, we talk early, and the older our children get, we talk more often and we expand. I really started, since my son was born and able to comprehend, I would talk to him. And as a matter of fact, by the time he was, I think in 3rd grade, I had written a poem, Black Like Me, because I wanted him to feel good about being who he was and where he, who he is, where he come from and his people. So I wrote that poem for him, Black Like Me. And he actually had to recite a poem in school. And I told him, I said, Jonah, when you recite this poem, you have to, feel really empowered. You have to, give it with attitude. You can't, say Black like me, Black like, I didn't want him to do that. So when I saw him perform this poem, I knew he got it. And then like I said, the older he got, the more I started talking to him, about how the world would see him. And when he got into high school, the high school that we picked, it's a high school here in Chicago that is for the performing arts. So my son, he is an artist, so he draws. And he had to audition and he got into school. And for the first time, he found himself going to school with all kinds of kids. And that was one of the draws for me, because my sister and I grew up in the suburbs, and I wanted him to have that experience that we had, to understand what it's like going to a school with people who don't look like himself. The only difference was when my sister and I was in school, we were the only Blacks in the school. But I just wanted him to get that, that experience. So in high school, he came home one day. It was over a summer break. And he came home one day. He was really enthusiastic. He was like, Mama, I'm gonna get, guess what I take next year? And I said, what? And he goes, he threw this book on the coffee table. And I knew what the book was. Just from the shape of the book, I knew what it was. And I was like, oh God, all these bells started going off in my head, like, oh my God, it's driver's ed. And most of us would be like, most experience I know with other parents, they're like, oh yeah, my kid is getting independent and he's gonna be able to drive. And it's a really big, happy event. But for me, I was like, oh my God, the cops gonna be pulling him over. Oh Lord, I was panicking, but I was trying not to quench his enthusiasm. So I was like, oh my God, these bells just started going out. And then I just told him right there, I said, Jonah, I said, you need to know some things. And I just told him, I said, he hung out with like this group of 7 boys and they went everywhere together. And I told him, I said, Jonah, when you start driving, I said, you cannot have all of them with you. I said, because that is they will zone in on you real quick with all a car full of young black men. You just can't do that. I said, if it's going to be bad enough with you and your best friend, Gary, in the car, I said, but if it's you and Gary and Marshawn and all these other ones, I said, you can't do that. So I found myself, every year before school would start, we'd have these talks. Like I always tell him, his school was what we call in Chicago, we'd say it's on the north side. It's up north, but not too far from downtown. My thing was, Jonah, if y'all hang out, do not hang out with all 7 of you. They will, they even walking down the street, they will ask you for your ID and they will keep, harassing you and to the point where one of you is being arrested. I said, so Jonah, always, I said, and never, ever linger. And always walk like you have someplace to go. Never just stroll down the street like you don't have anywhere to go, because that's another sign that they take and they say, they'll stop you and ask you for your ID and are you ditching school and all this other kind of stuff. So it's several talks that you have, especially during that age from 13 to 18. I was on my son. I know he got tired of hearing me, do these talks, but they were necessary. And I thank God that I did these talks because, I would like pass my son's room and I'd hear him on the phone saying, y'all know we can't do that. They're gonna stop us, or, we can't hang out. I would hear him telling his friends the stuff that I was telling him. So I knew, I said, okay, I'm doing a good job. So that's what it, we all have these talks. So our parents had to talk with us. It was a different time back then, but like I said, Cheryl and I, we were really almost the only Blacks in the school. So they, but our dad talked to us often. He said, you're gonna hear the N-word. They're gonna, and we did. We would hear it all the time. I never forget when we first moved out there. I was 5, Cheryl was 6. We were in a driveway. We were riding our big wheel in the driveway. And some people came by our house and it was a mom and a daughter. And she stopped at our driveway and she said, see, that's what you call an N-word. These are N-words and you don't go near these people. And then she walked off. And we looked at our dad, and Daddy began to talk to us and explain to us, that this is what we were going to hear. And then shortly after that, while we were in the grammar school, our older siblings were at the high school, and our brother came running home one day. Our brother and our sister came running home one day because they were chasing them, throwing bottles at them, pop bottles. So, our parents talked to us, and it just goes on down the line that you talk to your children. So that's what inspired me to do the talk. And the piece that I wrote for the talk is just me going into a little bit more detail about what I told my son when he brought that book home, the driver's ed book.
Thanks, Loris.
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Wow, she covers so much, I don't even know what to say. We just, as young Black girls of middle school age, little girls, like Laura said, I was 6. Your perspective is just so different when you're in your driveway playing with your toys and your dad's in the yard, and you hear the N-word. And then that opens up a whole other dialogue for you and a vantage point of which you see the world. So to get the talk from that experience as little girls playing was very telling. The other vantage point was little girls hearing your dad give your brother and sister who are in high school the talk in a way that they understand it, which is not because a neighbor said something that was insulting and unkind to them, but just, okay, this is life for you. This is, how we keep you safe in this environment, in this neighborhood, and what life is going to look like for you as young adults. So being little girls hearing that conversation, I've heard the conversation so many different ways and so many different times throughout life. I actually had to give the talk to Ezra, my nephew, who Loris writes about in The Talk in our book, listening to her tell him how to stay safe, just as a young Black boy in an urban inner city young man growing up. And he was a boy, he was not a man. He's a man now at 22, but we've been talking to him in his lifetime from about the age of what, Laura's 8?
No, from age 2.
Okay, well,
Tony.
there it is. Okay, so he's been getting different variations of the conversations that we grew up with our parents, our older siblings, our older brother and sister. I'm his aunt. I had to give him the talk. My mother and father gave me the talk. Me and my sister Loris the talk. So we've been talking an entire lifetime. It almost seems like we do too much talking. And at what point can people just be? So that's pretty much all I have to say about that, because I don't think we're odd in that respect. I think Black people do a lot of talking. It almost seems like at some points we're the only ones talking. And I wish that were not the case, but that's where we are.
Right. Thank you. Carla, are you still in Belize?
No, I'm home. I got home today.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, so glad to be here. I decided to contribute to this anthology, The Talk, because Lisa invited me to submit work, and I thought that it's a really important topic. It's something that Unfortunately, a lot of people of color must still do have this talk with their children so that they can remain safe when they're confronted by bigoted law enforcement and other authority figures in different systems that can be really oppressive. I didn't just write about my son, I also wrote about my students. And one time that we had decided as a school community to have a forum about police brutality. And I noticed that there were some students who were crying, and it turns out that they were friends with a student named Kamani Gray, who was killed by police several years ago. He was a 16-year-old man, young man. And I decided to write a piece about him where I was talking to him and sharing details about his life, because so often when young people of color are killed by police, they're often demonized. They're accused of being on drugs or having a criminal record. And even if that is true, that doesn't make them any less of a human being. And it doesn't mean that it's right for police officers to abuse the authority and be judge and jury. And so that was the perspective that I had for one of the pieces. So I wanted to share, not only as a mother, but as a teacher, the kinds of conversations I have to have with my son and then the students that I teach.
Thank you, Carla. Jantu?
Lisa?
Yes. I thought Jantu was in here.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you? Oh,
Sorry
okay.
about
Yeah,
the sneeze.
yeah, I'm having technical difficulties with my cam. Sorry about that. I'm still working on it. But
Thank you.
as long as y'all can hear me, I can still talk. I can hear you guys. So
Okay, jump in.
yeah, it's good to see you, Lisa, Cheryl,
Thank
Lyris.
you.
Good to see y'all.
Hi, Shantu.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was, Lisa extended a courtesy of having me submit some work to the talk, and I was very honored to do that, to be amongst such great authors and artists. I'm still, I'm still working on, on my craft, so just kind of bear with me. I got a few books out, but I'm always Black first, in everything that I do. There's no denying that. I can't help it everywhere I go. So my piece was just about Black fathers, fatherhood. It was from a essay that I wrote in college, a while back, and it was just something near and dear to me. I had just recently had lost my dad around that time, and I had the kind of dad like James Evans on Good Times. My dad was very, very tough and very stern. He's military and no nonsense. He didn't take no mess from none of us. And very, very hard man. It's hard to figure out at times, but I loved him and I miss him. Wanted to honor him in that piece. Just giving the Black dads a shout out. Black dads are necessary and they matter. And that was kind of why I did that. And and like I said, just to be amongst a great group of authors out there that I admire and respect. This is Lisa, this is second rodeo together, on this Zoom chat. I'm happy to be here again. And while I'm here, I'm gonna be working on my camera, trying to get it up and running. But I'm just honored to be here. I don't know what else to say. I'm just from the Midwest. Honestly, I didn't think I would live to be this old, to tell you the truth. With all the things that was
Glad you're
going
still
on.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
all the things that's been going on, I didn't think I'd make it to this level. So I'm very blessed and honored to be here.
Yeah, each day is a blessing for sure. Yasmin. Yasmin, would you like to share?
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm having
Yeah.
technical difficulties all the way around.
I hear you
So,
fine. Your head kind of moves slowly, but your voice comes through fine.
okay, then that's good. As long as my voice comes through, because I don't have a clue on what's going on with my computer. All of a sudden, it told me Eventbrite wasn't working.
Oops.
So, so I contributed 2 poems in the talk. One is called "I Am My Community," and the other one is called "I Can't Breathe." And "I Am My Community" was inspired by the African American community. I am my community. I'm African American, and my grandchildren, my father, my mother, everyone is African American. So I wanted to contribute that poem to give my community a voice, to let me share my expressions with the government. And if you are going to be in that leadership position, then ethics, honor, and lead by example should be what we're seeing in the government toward all communities, but especially the African American community, because we suffer more than other communities. And the other poem is called "I Can't Breathe," and that one was inspired by, again, where our country is trying to go back to, because that was a time where when the slogan "Make America Great Again" or "Make America Great," it's like, when was America ever great to African American people? So that community was inspired by that era that it seems like the country is going back to, where lynching is being legalized and things like that to do bodily harm to a certain set of people or a certain group of people. And so that poem, "I Can't Breathe," was inspired by where our country wants to go instead of moving forward.
Thank you, Yasmin. Is there anybody else here that contributed to the book who would like to speak? Because I can't see everybody on my screen.
What I wanted to say, a lot of times news is very local. So what happens in the world impacts us, which at the time when my nephew was a little boy in school age, Trayvon Martin was just killed. But every year subsequent to that, up until he's now a grown man, there was a, a big national major killing of a Black male, which led us having to talk often. So it seems like we never ended. One talk just, it was ongoing. It just kept going and escalating. And so that's one of the things that I think we all feel as parents of Black children, whether they're males or not. We are always talking to our children about just how to keep them safe. And I wanted to say that. I didn't say that the first time.
Thank you, Cheryl. I see Kimberly's in the house. Kimberly, would you like to share about the story behind your writing in the talk?
Yeah, would you mind giving me just a moment?
Yeah, I know you just came in the room and I grabbed you.
Just one moment.
I'll let you get a chance to get settled.
Okay, thank you.
if I could say something real quick
Yes.
while Kimberly gets ready. I'm just so grateful that you all are here and wanted to share these stories in this project with us. There were some things I heard, what is my community? That really stuck with me, because how do I represent my community and how do I challenge it? Because it is part of my community that is part of the problem. Ethics, honesty, and lead by example. I think all of us in this room are attempting to do that. And I'm so honored to be in the room with you attempting to do that. And then talking about, we're trying to go back. We are not trying to go back. We are trying to go forward. But there is what I call a certain ignorant and arrogant small part of us who I think they don't know what they don't know, and it scares them. And instead of being inspired by curiosity, they're inspired by their fear. And that's what this talk is all about, to make people understand that fear is just lack of curiosity and lack of understanding. So I just wanted to say that. But now that Kimberly looks like she's ready to go, are you ready to introduce and talk about the talk?
Yes, yes, I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. And good evening, everyone. So just, I guess we're speaking on kind of like our poems and inspiration behind them. Is that where we are? I'm sorry, I'm late.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the story
All
behind
right.
your
Well,
story.
my poem is entitled "Don't Sleep," and as I was going through and writing this poem and just thinking about a conversation that would be had, with the child, with a youngster or a teenager or whatever it might be, I just, as I was going through, I was just thinking about how hard of a conversation it is to have, and how you might want to say, don't run. Well, shoot. Well, if you run, well, there's people who didn't run and they still, ended up in a situation. Well, put your hands up. No, don't put your hands up. Put them down. Well, it's like I felt like I didn't honestly know what to say to keep, to keep them safe, to have them understand what to do or what not to do. Because even at times when it seems that, someone may have done what we consider the right thing, that they still ended up in a bad position. So it was a really hard poem. It was tough to write and tough to really come to grips with the fact that, it really can just be a matter of who you're dealing with, and that can determine, the outcome of what it is. And so just having a tough time, it's just representing how tough of a conversation it really truly is to have with someone, to try to explain to them what to do or what not to do in order to keep them safe. So that's really where, the inspiration, and kind of as I flow through the poem, that is just what I kept coming back to, just don't sleep, just be aware, just always be aware. The Bible talks about, just kind of why being watchful and doing it circumspectly and just being aware at all times because things come at you from every angle, and how you basically have to have, eyes in the front and the back and on the side. And you always got to be aware of where you are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and who you're dealing with. So that's pretty much the gist behind this particular poem.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, you had written the introduction to the book, and I think your story behind that is interesting. Would you like to share something about that?
Sure. About the time, well, if you've read my introduction, you know that part of it, but it's funny, Zan got her books, and then she opened it up and she started reading everything, and she read my introduction. She immediately sent me a personal message, an email. Oh my gosh, this is what we're talking about. This is, just being human with each other. And I don't know what moment, but it was before even I met Maurice. Maurice has been one of many, many young people who have come through here. And, not once did I think I needed to have the talk before I met Maurice, that I needed to have that talk with young people who were coming here. And, I've had people come here, young people come here from all around the world, from every culture. And we welcome them all with open arms. And everyone has something to teach us. I was in a session this morning with Kettering Foundation, ran a session, and they interviewed this guy, Willis Bing Davis. Here's a link, he's in Dayton, Ohio. And he was talking about the art that he does. And he was talking about his mama, who didn't have a greater than a 5th grade education, and how much inspiration he takes in his art from his mother. And she did quilting and she did shape note singing. And he said, she always said to me from the time I was little, reach high and reach back. Reach high and reach back. And he said it took him a long time to understand what that meant. But now he understands that his life is about all the blessings that he's had, but reaching back to bring people with him, to bring people along with him. And I was so touched. He also said, he had just this really profound quote that he said, I went looking for me and I found us. I went looking for me and I found us. And I look around this room and I think, how many of us do the work that we do for our own selves, to be our best selves and live our best lives with love and grace and integrity. And here we are sitting in this room, all of us, talking about sharing messages in the world that need to be shared as widely as possible. And then this morning, someone made a post in the garden. And she said, I've been thinking a lot about allies and how there are so many people who attack their allies, who tell them that their allies are not doing enough. And in her post, she said, I've been thinking hard about that and reading about that. And then she said, it is enough. It is enough to stand up for another person. One small act of kindness has huge, huge ripples. And it is enough to say, I don't agree with your world of hate. So all of this happened today. Those little pebbles that we drop, and we may think, is it enough? Am I doing enough? Wherever we stand, is it enough? It is always enough. It is always enough to be who we are and have our voice out in the world. And look what happens. It becomes going from, I looked for me and I found us. So I want to just say thank you so much for being part of the us in my world and sharing your voices. And I hope we do more of these books, but not too hard, because I don't really want to have to do more of these books. I really want to be able to say, we don't need that book anymore because they all get it. But until then, we'll keep dropping the pebbles. We'll keep rippling it out. So thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I feel like I wish I could get this book into the hands of the people who really need to read it.
Oh, that's another thing. What happened today, what I got inspired to do. I'm going to buy copies of this book. You know, people have been talking about, and I see them around all over the place in different communities, these library share boxes. They're like a box where you can put books, free books and art supplies and things. I'm going to get copies of this book, and I'm going to start going into communities and looking for those book share things, those free library book share things, and I'm going to drop copies of this in there.
I've done that in coffee shops. I think I might get someone to do that. People will read books in coffee shops. They have the one, like my favorite coffee shop has, you leave one, take one kind of thing going on. So, but how do you get these in people's hands, to people's eyes that need to read this? And maybe that's another thing that Nancy, we need to coordinate on how to get this out there so people see it. Do such beautiful work of getting the newsletter stuff out there. So,
You know, I love the idea of what Susan said, just put it on that community table. Yeah, I thought of 3 right off the top of my head that would be kind of interesting to see what would happen with them there. I think that's a wonderful idea. And yeah, I think we could definitely, you know, one of the things that this type of gathering does is it helps us get comfortable talking to a crowd. And really my dream is to see all of you up on a real stage sharing your stories. We talk about the garden stage, and, you know, I have these big dreams of red carpets and awards and, you know, the whole thing. But this is the beginning of that, how we practice and we tell our stories so that we can get in front of larger crowds and speak comfortably and share, you know, something that could be emotional that you have to be able to, you know, speak through. So that's the goal, is to get not only the book out there, but the contributors out there speaking more. That's the goal. We could have a whole like entourage. We go around the country doing it or something.
yeah, I think there's some things that I think we might create, like an Instagram page. It's just called The Talk. Some things like that maybe we can do some focusing on. I know, thanks to Zan pointing it out to me, there's the book called White Women, and I've been reading on that. I almost have it done, and they've got quite a platform on Instagram, or now have a lot of women, white women, who are reaching out to try to do some things against gun violence because of how they've organized things. So I believe, you know, there's power in the people. It's just get it out there in the platform.
Yeah.
Maybe the talk can have its own Instagram account.
Yeah.
That's you know, that's a thought, having a private Facebook group where we all can get together and talk, and then talk about the events that, you know, if anyone's going to something, we want to be able to support that, or starting something, we want to be able to support that. Something else we want to do is the call for submissions for the talk is open, and we've decided to keep it open. It's just open. So at any time that you feel you have something to submit it. And, you know, when we get up to enough to do a book, we're going to put another book out there. So if it's enough to do 1 book a year, if it's enough to do 5 books a year, that's the goal. But I'll drop a link to that in the chat here in a second. But, you know, really, it's about these gatherings. It's about getting more people just to come and listen, and to have a more diverse crowd, hear these more stories. You know, that's the goal, is to get, and especially I think the women, because we are the one doing the most of the raising of the children. And we need to hear those stories. You know, Laura, you having to tell that story over and over again, starting at 2 years old, it kills me. I mean, those are not conversations that happen in my household ever. And to have it over and over and over again, it's just, you know, it makes my skin crawl. It really does, of what some people in this world have to deal with just on a day-to-day basis. It is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And I want to be a part of that, not tolerating it anymore and standing up to it, and not with hate or anger, but with curiosity. Where do your stories come from that make you think that? And I've said it before, you know, we hold on to the stories that we were taught at that table that we grew up around. We hold on to them like they are the only truth, without realizing if we had been born to the house next door, we would hold on to completely different stories with that much power and energy and belief in them. So, you know, listen to more stories, tell more stories, and ask more questions. Okay, so I'm putting that link in the chat. Here we go. Lisa, what else?
I'm the type of person please and get in people's faces about things, even though I'm very much of an introvert. But I think when something happens, it needs to be seen. I'm celebrating the Justins, who recently, the representatives who, one of them's back in and the other one's working on getting back in. You know, been really following that and trying to do those things. This morning, Warren Buffett was on. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's talking about what's going to happen to his domain once he's no longer running the show. And one of the top executives for his company is a Black man. And he was, it's kind of funny, Warren's, you know, 80 some, maybe 90 some, I don't know. But he says, oh, and by the way, he's Black. And I don't know why he said it that way. But the point was that he was, you know, saying we're putting, you know, a Black man at a leadership role. And I thought that was a good thing. And I think that's what I'm going to choose to celebrate, is that, you know, he recognized that we need that value, we need that diversity. And so I was at least pleased that he made that positive announcement, even though he's kind of funny way of saying things. But anyway, well, that's all I have, but I would like to do a screenshot if somebody wants to take the screenshot again one more time with the books, because some more people joined us. For those who came in and didn't catch, if you could hold up your book and put your smiling face beside it, we want to do a screenshot of everybody with the book. Let's see, Laura, you got your book?
No, Cheryl didn't send it to me in time.
Yeah, I didn't get
okay.
mine in time. I'm
We'll
sorry.
we'll just have your smiling face.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, whenever
Sorry.
you're ready, Nancy. All done? Oh, no. Okay.
Got
Well,
it.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Very much appreciate it. We'll be publishing this video and might be pulling some sound bites from it to use for some promotional things to get the word out to more people. Shout out to Zan for helping me polish my poem, and to where is she? Carla. She found the what do you call it, epigraphs to put at the beginning of the book, and Cheryl for being my soulmate and making this happen. She's been my go-to person all the way through. So I don't know what I'd do without her. So thank you all so much, and you have a blessed night.
Thank you.
So good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. And I've got the button to end the meeting for all, so.
I think that's kind of how I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. I'll see you later, Lisa. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.